And we're recording here
Hey.
on. Hello, Ephraim.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon in Miami.
Miami, Florida, that's correct.
So you flew out right before the lockdown.
Yeah, it was a bit of a crazy. We changed our flight like 4 times because we weren't sure about the lockdown. So,
And how long are you in for? Are you in through all the Yom Noraim and Chagim?
yep, we're going back to the Chagim after the Chagim, after Sukkot.
After Shmini Atzeret.
So we spoke about last time about leaving in peace and returning in peace. So I left in peace, and hopefully I will return in peace.
Yes, Hashem. Oh my gosh, yes, of course.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Good. Now the big news is I've got my English copy of Aryeh Kaplan's classic. Do you have your Hebrew copy?
Right here is a Hebrew copy. You guys are looking at the last available book, or I mean, it's not available anymore because I have it. The last copy in the world.
Wow.
This is translated into Hebrew, Rabbi Caplan's commentary.
Wow.
So it's a beautiful book. It's written very well. I'm very excited to learn out of it. I also got the other book that I have here is Perush of Rabbi Avraham Abulafia.
You did get it?
I got it.
Oh my gosh.
Also, this is an interesting one because Rabbi Abulafia he has one of his Pirushim on Sefer Yetzirah is in the book called Eden Otzar Ganuz.
Yes.
That's one of his Pirushim for Sefer Yetzirah, and this book is not actually an official commentary of Sefer Yetzirah. It's actually what the editor of this book just took a whole bunch of pieces from Rabbi Abulafia about Sefer Yetzirah and put them all together in one book.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So that came to Israel, or did that come to Miami?
No, that was in Israel. I picked it up in Israel.
All right.
It's available in Israel. Next time you come, I'll get you one too.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say, okay, my trip to come in peace and leave in peace, or come in peace and stay in peace, would be to, maybe, God willing, to pick up that Sefer. Well, beautiful.
God willing. Yeah. Okay,
right,
so we're in Mishnah Zayin, right? The seventh Mishnah.
Yeah, 1-7. If you have Rabbi Kaplan's book at home, page 57.
Fantastic. So I'll go ahead and start in Hebrew, and then you'll follow in the English version.
Yes.
Okay. 10 ספירות בלימה, נעוץ סופן בתחילתן ותחילתן בסופן, כשלהבת הקשורה בגחלת, שאדון יחיד ואין לו שני, ולפני אחד מה אתה סופר.
Excellent. So 10 sefirot of nothingness, their end is embedded in their beginning, and their beginning in their end, like a flame in a burning coal. For the master is singular, he has no second, and before the one, what do you count?
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of poetry here.
Mm-hmm.
Can you translate what is keshelhevet kshura begachelet? I was wondering in English. The fire connected with coal. How does he translate?
Burning coal. Now we're going to get to Abulafia here, as he makes a connection to Abulafia, saying that the word coal is galchelet.
Gachelet, right?
Yeah, and now where's the gimel here? I have benachelet. But did they mean to put a gimel there? It's kashura begachelet, right?
Gachelet with a gimel, right?
Oh, it looks like a nun in my copy. Okay, good. All right, so gachelet means coal, and has a numerical value of 441 in gematria. This is what Abulafia points out, and it's the same gematria as the word Emmet.
Yeah.
Of truth. Did you see that?
I did see that, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, oh, that's right. Gachelet 441 was his truth. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And that's a very interesting one. Yeah.
Well, it's going to go back to what we said, that the beginning is in the end. Like the Emmet, the Aleph, and the Tuf are the beginning and the end, and the coal and the flame, coal and flame in the Kabbalah, I guess, are opposites. Like we talked a little bit about last time, the Yin Yang of the two opposites still being one thing. Right.
So I think it's my understanding here also, with the help of Aryeh Kaplan commentary, is that where it starts with describing the Sefirot as, the beginning and the end are, what's the word he used for na'utz, for intertwined or connected?
Embedded, I think is the word in English. Yeah, embedded. One inside the other.
right, is embedded. So like, in other words, they both can be a beginning, and they could also be a beginning, behave as a beginning, and behave as an end. It's all relative. It's a matter of their movement. So it's like kind of like if you think about the alphabet, Aleph is obviously the beginning and Taf is the end. But if you start counting it backwards, then Taf is the beginning of the end, right?
Okay, good, very good.
And then Aleph becomes the end of the beginning. So it's also the same thing in matter of the Sefirot themselves. You could have what's called Keter de Bria, right? Or Keter de Bria is lower than Malchut de Atzilut.
Yes.
In other words, if we have the four worlds of Asiya, Yetzirah, Bria, and Atzilut, and within every world there's the 10 Sefirot. So if you say the Keter of Asiya is lower, obviously, than the Malchut of Yetzirah, of the next world. So it's very relative in that sense.
Yeah, or they could be almost like embedded in each other. That Keter that combines with the Malchut of the next world.
Right.
There's a Bein Hashmashot. There's like kind of a mix as they go into the next world.
Exactly. And Aryeh Kaplan here, he says that most Perushim, they view the beginning as Sfirat Keter and the end as the Sfirat Malchut. And a lot of times, mostly Keter is viewed as the reason, right? Is the source of the will, the beginning point of the reason, and Keter is the outcome, right? Is the it's the outcome. I think that's the right word.
Effect.
Is the effect or the outcome of the reason.
Very good.
A lot of times, if Malchut is the outcome of the reason or the effect, then that effect can also be the reason of the reason. Like in other words, it's also right. So I thought that was very interesting.
I love that part.
Yeah, where it's just really kind of trying to demonstrate that it's the yin and the yang, like you mentioned in the beginning, like that duality where they really are, they might oppose in specific ways in their behavior, but they're really connected in one way or another. It also reminds me of, we say in Kabbalah Shabbat, and the second phrase, we say, Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat chila. So the beginning of a thought is renewed by, the end of an action is renewed by its beginning thought. In other words, like it's telling us that whenever we come to finish an action, that action should be renewed by the beginning point. In other words, so the beginning can become the end, and the end can become the beginning.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, so
I think it goes over into the Gemara too, that are great discussions in the Gemara by do we call them Zvugim, or what do we call them for the pairs? When we talk about Rava and Abaye and Hillel and Shammai, do we call them zygote, right? Or zygote or
Zugot. Yeah,
Zugot, that's it.
Right.
So they always come in pairs where one is the cause of the other, who's the cause of the other, and they need each other to get not to own the truth, but get closer to the truth. Exactly. And we need both opinions, and isn't that just so apropos for today's world?
Yeah, totally. So the Emmet thing of Abu Lafia, I really like that. I really like what he said there. He brought in Abu Lafia because it was basically saying, like you said in the beginning, where the idea of beginning and end, where it's connected in that sense. It is expressed also in the word Emmet, which takes basically the first letter, the middle letter is Mem, and the last letter, and they connect, basically connecting all the contrasts together into one word, which comes out to be true. So,
yeah, I really like that idea of the coal and the flame, because it says the spiritual goes with the physical, the light goes with the coal, and the opposites are needed for each other. I was actually just thinking that as you said that Emmet, the Mem in the middle, the connector, is the number 40. And that's probably why 40 is so important, with Moshe being on Har Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights, and so many 40s that we have with Mayim being water.
40 years in the desert, right?
40 years in the desert, and it seems like that Mem is a really connector between opposites. But we could think of more examples.
Rabbi Akiva, 40 years old.
That's right.
Learning, right?
Kabbalah, 40 years old. You haven't really
Kabbalah,
hit that
40 years old.
You're a little bit early, aren't you? I'm right there. You're not 40 years old.
I'm not close to 40.
I give you permission.
Okay. 40 says Arbem le Bina, 40 for Bina. That's when you reach the conscious level of Bina.
Right. Right.
40 is a big number. That's right. And maybe it's that middle point where you're able to take the two like it actually makes sense, right? So it's like, why does it say maybe 40 for Binah, consciousness of Binah, or 40 for learning Kabbalah? Maybe at that point, 40 is the middle ground that's able to connect the two contrasts. Like you're able to understand the mystical and the rational, or the good and the bad, the yin and the yang, right?
Exactly. The yin and the yang, and I think it is a midpoint in life. Now, one moment, girls, you can play, but just not too loud, because I'm learning Sefer Yetzirah. Oh, you can plant flowers. Okay, beautiful. Baruch Hashem. So,
beautiful.
Very good point on that.
Nice. Right, and then it ends the Mishnah with the typical ending. Let's not forget God is one.
Yes.
But over here, I think Rabbi Caplan points out something interesting, different, is where I think previously, I don't have to check how it ends previously, but
yeah, we didn't use the word
Yachid.
Yeah.
Adon Yachid ve'eno sheni v'lifnei Chad Mata Sefer. So it starts off with saying Adon Yachid rather than saying Echad.
Beautiful, right?
Because when you say, like we say, Shema Yisrael Hashem Echad, right? We use that phrase Echad all the time, and over here Sefer Yetzirah is deciding to use the phrase Yachid.
But I'm on the class. Yachid. I'm on the class. Okay. Oh, okay. Yes. Please continue. Sorry. Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah.
So he says Adon Yachid, and the difference between Yachid and Echad is Echad is a number. It comes to describe the concept that it's one unit. It's a one, but Yachid is about saying that it's only. So it eliminates everything, the idea, the possibility that anything else might exist.
I think that's why it was a secret teaching. Kabbalah is so secret for so long, and probably is appropriate to be secret now, because I think when you say to the whole nation, at that time was a slave class coming out of Egypt and had zero or negative education, you would say God is one, and as compared to all the Egyptian gods. But a little bit more advanced teaching would be God is Yachid. There really is no number, that God is everywhere. It's every single piece is God. God here, God everywhere. But that's just too hard to think about that when you're just getting started, getting to know Hashem.
Right. I get that. Yeah.
I like what Rabbi Caplan says, that only in the physical could the Yetzirah and the Yetzirah Tov exist together. And that's why we need the physical world, because spiritually, angels are pure good, but they don't have free will. So, I mean, I wouldn't trade my Yetzirah for no free will.
Right, exactly. Well, that's right. That's where he views. That's where the Mekubalim view our, us having a much larger potential in matter of growth. Because, he describes the whole, the whole structure of the angels in comparison to humans, where, the angels, like you said, in the spiritual world, there's no contrast, and there might be, and also since there's no contrast and everything is kind of oneness in that sense. There's no potential for growth in that sense, because each one has, if you speak about the angels, they all have their own very specific defined mission, and the information they may contain is very limited, right? And Ari Caplan gives the example of I think in Sefer Daniel, where one of the angels turns to another angel. He kind of asks him, like, when is the Mashiach is coming, or something along those lines, because he can't contain it. It can only contain the information he was given. And us humans, we have the ability, since we're I guess born as an empty vessel, we have the ability to always expand the information.
That's a great example.
So
I think Rambam calls the angels almost that they are themselves information. If you look at it from his scientific viewpoint, that he says the angels really are information, and that's why they don't have Yetzirah, Yetzirah Tov. I think that's why we are kind of God-like.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk another time about Bereshit. What does it mean that Hashem was upset that we could open our eyes and be like God? It seems like we already are like God when we have free will. So I wonder what that eating of the etsa really did.
Yeah, that's the Ari. He speaks a lot about, what etsa did and what did that cause in the world, and he views the sin of etsa as, well, he views, like, first the Adam and Chava, they had the potential to if we spoke about a few times ago about this, how there was a tzimtzum and there was a shvira in the process of creation of the world.
Well, let's use English for people listening. So tzimtzum means contraction of God's light,
right?
To make space for the physical world.
Contraction or the reduction of his light.
And then he put the light back in, but it was too much, so the vessel's cracked.
Right. So the vessel cracked, and then, the Ari lays out, and in his theory, he thinks that Adam and Chava had the potential to fix the light and put them together. But rather than fixing it, then they created even a larger type of break, another shvira in the balance of light. Kind of if you think about it, just like in the, in the balance between the positive and the negative. And so and then the Ari, he kind of views like our mission to go, and then what happened like in the chet and in the sin of etsa is where the light broke and shattered into the entire existence of the world.
Yeah.
And the Ari sees our mission to go out and collect those lights and put them back together.
Yes.
The broken pieces.
Well, I saw a Gemara that was so interesting that said, we might have even talked about this already, that the Jewish people were meant to go into exile to find converts. And if you look at our conversion rate, it's so low. But
so that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That's what I say. You mentioned that last time, is if you think of light as information, for example. So then if information shattered and scattered into the entire world, then our goal is to collect information.
That's where it makes so much sense. That's good. Right?
That fits also very well with, our last class where you brought in Taoism. And it's like, let's bring in information from different places because like they all exist everywhere because of this.
Very good. Very good. Excellent connection. So, very good.
So that's that. So it's, there's a lot here. Anything else on this Mishnah? I don't know.
No. I thought, Rabbi Caplan ends it with the Gastelet. Am I saying it correctly? Yes. And that 441, I thought that was so fascinating that even in the word kol, we could find gematrias that make sense with the bigger picture.
Well, that's the uniqueness of Abulafia. He's probably the only one who's able to do that.
I think so. Yes. Yes. Okay, let's go on to 1.8.
Yeah, let's do that. Fantastic. Okay, I'll read the Hebrew. Eser sfirot blima. ולום פיך מלדבר ולבך מלהרהר, ואם רץ פיך לדבר ולבך מלהרהר, שוב למקום, שלכך נאמר והחיות רצו ושוב, ועל דבר זה נכרת הברית.
Excellent. So the 10 sfirot of nothingness, bridle your mouth from speaking, and your heart from thinking. And if your heart runs, return to the place. It is therefore written, the chayot running and returning. That was in Yechezkel, or people say Ezekiel. Regarding this, a covenant was made. So, fascinating that. Do you have ideas on the 10 spirit or the bridle of the mouth? I have some ideas on the heart running and returning.
Yeah. So, I saw in Abulafia's Perush here, he reads this first piece, where it says 10 spirot of nothingness. It's like, what's the translation again for that one?
Bridle your mouth from speaking. I think just sort of lower the talking. Yeah,
bridle your mouth from speaking, and I guess your thoughts from whining away. And he kind of like asked this question of Abulafi. He's like, first of all, this is a direct contradiction to the fourth Mishnah, and the fourth Mishnah says, "Haven b'chokhma v'chacham b'bina." Like the fourth Mishnah kind of says like the exact opposite. He's like, analyze everything, think about it from a perspective of reason, and dissect it and really dive into it with your thought and on an intellectual level. And over here it says like the exact opposite. And Abulafia is like asking like, well, what are we doing here? What's happening here? It's like, are we supposed to either,
talk or remain
silent?
Talk,
or are we supposed to be silent in that sense? And that takes us back to, what he says in the opening of his Perush, Abulafia. He says that one can only be complete. Well, he says one cannot learn Sefer Yetzirah and really grasp entire, the idea of God. And on the other hand, one can't also learn only Moreh Nevuchim, which is, what is that in English? The guide
of the perplexed.
The guide of the perplexed, and understand the God as well. What you need to do is you need to You need to read both of them. You need to combine them into one.
Yes.
And that's him combining the mystical and the reason. And I think that's the same thing is happening here with Sefer Yetzirah. It's not telling you, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. It's really telling you it's the balance between the two.
Wow. So that just goes right back to the previous mission that we have to pull the opposites together.
Right. And I think, I think the way I see this part, I think it's trying to say that if you want to grasp the sfirot, it can't necessarily happen on an intellectual level. In other words, you could maybe understand the sfirot, try to analyze them and kind of like learn them in theory. We could do that on an intellectual level. But if you actually want to experience them, maybe even in a meditative way, it has to happen. It can't happen through speech because speech is limited. It needs to happen probably in a deep meditative experience. And this takes me to, I think, what we spoke about a few classes ago of Rabbi Nachman, where he says to achieve, the empty space, or to kind of like enter this space beyond maybe a higher level of consciousness. It can only happen in three ways, right? Through music, through stories, and and silence. In other words, nonverbal communication, because the nonverbal way is what can penetrate. With the nonverbal communication, you could really break the barrier of language, basically.
Very nice. Well, it sounds like a progression from the previous Mishnah. If you really want to understand this flame and kol and opposites,
right,
you can study it all you want, but you're going to have to allow yourself to go to the next level.
Exactly, and actually experience it.
And experience it. Very good. Excellent. That's Abulafia's commentary, right?
So that's Abulafia, first part, and and that gets me thinking about your music meditation, because like the whole idea of the permutation and like the musical meditation that you do is really try to break that barrier of language and to experience more than to experience this maybe experience this field, to experience whatever it is you're trying to achieve. And music is really seems clear to me that's one of the ways to do it.
I think so.
It's interesting.
Well, I think that's exactly right. And I've played so much music of different styles, but when I just allowed the notes to pick themselves without thinking about style or playing blues or jazz or rock, whatever it might be, and just let the notes pick and me not direct them at all, that really was quite an experience, which I wouldn't share the details of the experience, but I do like to teach the method. But it's just like you said, it just helps you transcend language, which gets us into another deeper experience of what we're learning.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and then he says here, right, and then and if you do try, and if during this experience, it's kind of giving like a meditative guidance here, like the way I see it. It's like, don't, kind of like disconnect from your intellect, disconnect from your mind. Don't try to express it verbally. Try to create this experience. And if you do wander off into your thoughts and start to verbally, speak on a theoretical level, then it says return to your place.
Yes.
And that also reminds me of like, Rav Kook in Orot HaTshuva, he asks like, what does it mean to do tshuva? And like, where is it we're returning to, right? Because generally we're thinking we're just returning, to the Torah, which is something external to us, or we're returning to, I don't know where. So he says the definition of tshuva is one returning to himself, to his own self, to the purest part of yourself. So perhaps maybe that's what Sefer Yetzirah is also trying to say. It's like, if you're wandering off, you're going somewhere external. That's not you. Like, return to the actual you.
Yes.
That's I think maybe what
I think that's very good. I also think it also goes back to just what we said about Rabbi Akiva going in peace and returning in peace, because I think he had a full roadmap to see the spiritual world, but also to come back, and that perhaps without criticizing the great Tanaim, that Ben Azai or Ben Zoma maybe didn't have a return ticket in mind, and that's where they wound up in trouble. Also, Acher too.
Exactly. So that's the running and returning. The returning is such an important part that it's kind of like in order to go to sleep you have to be willing to wake up.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right.
So like,
very good.
The returning is such an important part of the process, to be willing to return.
Well, I think that's why Rabbi Nachman is so important, because his main meditation is speaking to God. And how do you get lost in that? How do you go too far with speaking? If you feel like it's getting to be too intense, you'll just stop talking. you know, and go wash your face and do something else. So, and I think I think he's a very good, not backstop, but anyway, some type of protection to the Abulafia meditation, where if you're just doing music or doing something abstract, you could get a little bit lost in it, I think. And when I've combined Rebbe Nachman with Abulafia, it gives it that good guardrail to just make it, it's all conversation with Hashem. It's not about you and your consciousness or some spiritual level you're achieving. It's just talking to God the whole time. That gives it that ability to always be, it's God over there, it's me over here. We're not uniting, we're not becoming one. No, I think that's unique in Judaism, that we always stay human, no matter how close we try to get to Hashem. But I think that's where it could go off the rails a little bit if you try to break that barrier.
Exactly. So what you said, you had something interesting on last part?
Just what we were talking about, that the if your heart runs, that's talking about being a consciousness. This is from Rabbi Caplan. And, you know, the Sefer must be experienced with Hakuma Consciousness. So if one tries to depict them with Bina, then the mind can become engulfed in a profusion of symbolism. I think that's just what we're saying. You can get just too wrapped up in abstract symbols and ideas, and kind of why they don't want people in their, you know, teens or 20s going into Kabbalah, because you might take the actual symbols to be serious things. Like you might actually think the Sefer is a real thing, and you really might pray to it, or might think that meditation is the only part of life. So I think that ability to have Bina correctly placed in meditation is what they're trying to say. So if your heart runs, like if you get too involved, or you keep going further and further into meditation, you have to have the discipline or maturity to return back to home base.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it gets me. It reminds me of I've been reading the Tao Te Ching book.
Yes.
That you had, which is very interesting, and the concept here of kind of let go of your thoughts and intellect and language and experience, the sefirot in a non-verbal, non-action type of way, really resembles the concept they have in Taoism called the Wu Wei, which is literal translation means non-action, but the practice of the Wu Wei is basically trying to achieve the Tao, or like what they describe the Tao as, as the way, or describing it as the source, by going with the flow of life, right? It's going kind of like with the flow of water, and they call it and a non-action. It's a non-action practice, and it's really letting go of the intellect and the thoughts that are going through you in order to achieve this Tao. And I think, maybe what we could complete into Taoism, like from here, is we're not letting go of the intellect, because Mishnah 4 is also telling us to do that on one hand. So it's not a complete let go. It's just, in order to achieve specific experiences, we have to do different things. So like one thing would be what we're talking about now, in order to experience this field, but it's also important to view them on a theoretical, intellectual level.
I think that's great. No, that's very well said. There's so much in the Tao Te Ching that has the same type of poetry as Sefer Yetzirah.
Right.
And it doesn't give you a specific method. It doesn't say you need to breathe through your nose 6 times and sit this way. It just says it essentially says to me that you're in society for so long that you might forget who you are. And the more that you go into the woods and study nature and study yourself, the more you'll come to a truth without me having to tell you. Because if I had to tell you, you're back in society again. You're back into the structure.
Yeah.
So without saying too much, I'm just going to hint at things. But this Wu Wei is this coming back to our natural self without the influence of society and its expectations.
Yeah. Carl Jung had a very interesting phrase, maybe even scary phrase, where he says, people don't have ideas, ideas have people.
Oh.
And basically he was trying to say, like, living in a social structure, we think we have ideas, but those ideas are actually, in other words, we think we might have ideas. I have some sort of political idea right now, but that idea most likely existed before me. So what actually happened is that idea now has me, because it's a social idea. It's not my idea as an individual. And perhaps disconnected from the social structure, like you said, right? Going to nature and different ways, that could lead you to having your own ideas and your own discovery of yourself.
Well, I think that's a very interesting quote. I think the cure for Jung is Hisbodedus, is to take a daily break from society and talk about your ideas and check everything that you believe, because it's nature and nurture. Who knows exactly what it is? Are we just a product of our families and environment? We are, unless we investigate it, unless we go deeper into it. And I think that's why if you go beyond language, you can check yourself of how much language is making you talk, or are you using it as a tool?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Another interesting I heard is something small about the Taoism, what I thought was just very cool, is the Tao, or the Tao, right? It's written with a T. It's very similar to the concept we have in Bereshit, which is tohu vebohu. And tohu is tahu in Taoism, like the tahu. It's phrased in the exact same way. And perhaps it's also tohu and bohu is described in Judaism as the state of existence prior to in other words, the Sfirot existed.
Right.
It says but it's a state of existence that was prior to the Olam Asiyah, the physical world right here. And the tohu, it was basically the description of tohu is matter that didn't contain information, or space that didn't contain information. And bohu was the definition of information that didn't contain space, or wasn't fulfilled by space and or matter.
Wow.
And I think that the Taoism view of the Tao is like I think they describe it as like an empty vessel.
I think it's very, very similar to Ein Sof of Kabbalah and the Yachid, because Tao Te Ching many times says, if you can name the Tao, it's not the Tao.
Right.
If it's within your perception,
exactly.
and that's what we're saying with Yachid.
Exactly. Okay, beautiful.
Great similarities.
Yeah. Maybe we should do a Tao Te Ching Sefer Yetzirah study, piece by piece, and see where we what comes out of it.
I think we should reach out. I think the book that I recommend to you is Salala Tower. He's the writer. Right. We should reach out to him and tell him we're making these connections. Maybe he'll jump on a call with us.
Yeah, that would be amazing for sure.
Okay, great.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
Let's keep up Wednesday's lunch break. Oh no, wait, today's Thursday. What do I know during quarantine? Today's Thursday. Thursday lunch breaks. Maybe we'll keep this up next week.
Yeah. Sure. Let's play it by ear.
Yeah.
I should be fine. Thursday is that Erev Yom Kippur next Thursday?
That'd be no. Erev Yom Kippur would be Sunday, because 10 days of Esther Yemei Tshuva. So we have 10 days from Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's aim for that.
This was great. I love these Mishnayot that we did. They're fantastic.
Yeah, they really are.
Lishana Tova. Lishana Tova to your family, extended family.
Thank you. Likewise, Shana Tova. And Rabbi Nachman defines the month of Elul and Tishrei as he says you have to be baki beratzo, baki b'shov. You have to understand running and returning.
Ooh,
and it's
perfect.
Really,
timing.
This thing. Yeah, it's beautiful timing. And he says, he also finds it in the month of Tishrei. The letters Taf, Shin, and Reish, they're going backwards. They're returning, right? From the end. Taf, Shin, Reish.
And the Reish is Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
Very nice.
So we're definitely, in the right timing here to be studying this.
I think it all came together in this class.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good.
Okay.
Tova.